Namaste, welcome to the third episode of this panel discussion that we have, a panel on encouraging advanced student projects, leveraging Indian scientific and technological heritage and contributions. This panel has been discussing some very important issues, and we have had very interesting agreements and not so very, what do you call, it's not like everybody is towing the line, right? Because people are bringing perspectives, and there's an agreement to agree and agree to disagree perspective that's coming up there, and that's something that's really, really interesting. And on that note, let me kind of present this proposition to the panel at large. So we have these kinds of projects that we need to put together. There's so many things to be done. So the question that comes, these are all the pragmatics part of how to go about it, because I'm sure there are so many such efforts going on across the entire nation where people are trying to say, look, we have this wonderful heritage, we have benefited from it, why can't we have a continuity of it, why can't we leverage it, why can't we make an impact in the society, solving the problems of the society. So the question that I would like to ask, rather a set of questions, is what kind of best practices does one bring about in identifying those ripe areas for innovation in these multidisciplinary projects? And let me add a couple of sub-questions to this. How does one scope the outcomes of this project? Because a project has to be done by a set of students within a certain limited period of time, perhaps with a limited budget, limited resources. So how does one design this? Because as a guide, as a faculty, you need to think through about all of this, right? And how does one nurture the talent in the student to venture out and pick up all those multidisciplinary jnana, if I may kind of say so, to be able to not only understand the approaches that contemporary science and technology uses, but also a bit of Sanskrit, a bit of that intuitive way of going about problem solving, a bit of empirical observation and study and experimentation. That has been the forte of our people who have had impactful contributions across several thousands of years. So professors and Rajiv ji, what do you say to this? Maybe I should start with Professor Murthy. How do you go about trying to identify what's right for innovation? How do you go about motivating the student to take it up? And how do you go about trying to ensure that the student really completes a meaningful project within a limited amount of time, limited resources, and what the little skill sets they have? Professor Murthy.
Yeah. So this is, I would say, to some extent, not an easy thing, because to be honest, if you ask any IIT, I'm talking of only IIT students right now, IIT BTechs, let's say. Typically, most of the students join IIT thinking that they get a big salary at the end of the BTech. Okay, it is very few, very few are joining IIT, any of the IITs, thinking that I will become a great mechanical engineer or a great electronics engineer or a great civil engineer. Okay, for whatever may be the reason, okay, we have become like that. Okay, I mean, okay. I always say that two things I want to see by the time I retire, sometime 10 years down the line. That one, the placement cells in IIT should go. Okay, they should possibly become counseling cells. You should be able to, okay. Our job is to teach them the subject, okay, and then let them explore whatever is there. Maybe tell them what are all the things that are available for you to explore. Okay, so this is something which is, from the day one you come for counseling, the parents start asking you, what is the pay package my son is going to get at the end of 4 years? I said 17 years is the time when you should dream how to transform the whole world. That is the age, not to think of what salary I will get at the end of 4 years. If we are doing that, we are killing them. I mean, you are already killed yourself. And a corpse cannot dream big things. Okay, so this is what is something that motivation has to happen. I mean, I think societal change has to happen. Okay, basically thinking that we have to somehow from the school days, and that's again one thing that has spoiled all this is JEE. Okay, there should be a day when possibly we will come out of JEE. There should be a way of identifying best students to IIT without this so-called entrance examination, and which is, I mean, kind of for 4 years. I mean, in many places it is actually 4 years, not just 11th and 12th, is killing people to an extent that my son, he used to say, Papa, up to 10th, I'm so enthusiastic about science. And the moment I came to 11th and 12th with this coaching, okay, my whole time goes only on how to solve these problems, okay, rather than thinking what is behind. It's like looking at the statue of a god and not seeing what is there behind the statue. Okay, you started saying Namaste. I always say this to people. There is a significant difference between Namaste and Namaskar. Many people use the word Namaskar. Namaskar is Namaha plus Akar. Akar is a shape. Namaste is Te. Namaha plus Te. Saha Tau Te, when you say. That which is there inside you, to which I am bowing. So I have already accepted that there is divinity in you. I'm only bending in front of the divinity, not to the stature of you, not the money that you have, not the power that you have. Okay, so this is something I think that motivation has to happen from the younger age, to tell them that you should aspire. I tell students that IIT cannot be a goal for you. IIT should be a means to a goal. If IIT becomes a goal, you lose the goal once you join here. So that is something let's say a lot of things is on our shoulders. Okay, for example, from this year, one thing that we have done at IIT Hyderabad, there is no brand change once you join. Okay. So first semester and first 2 semesters, every IIT student who joins a metallurgy department keeps on working hard to change into computer science. And if he does not get, then the next 3 years, he keeps on cribbing. Oh, I should have done slightly better to be sitting there. And as a result, you comes out with a kind of an unsatisfied mind. And what an unsatisfied mind will do? An unsatisfied mind will never bring out great things. So we said, from now, you decide whether you want to join IIT Hyderabad or not. Okay. Once you join a particular branch, you will continue in that branch, so that you contribute to that branch. So there are so many, bold decisions one has to take to bring, like we say in metallurgy, heat treatment brings strength into the steel. But heat treatment means you are heating something and beating something. Okay, that looks very difficult thing, but difficulties are the ones which will make you a strong man. So maybe we have to do those things as we go along. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. In fact, I kind of infer that the motivation for a student who's done the, if I may kind of use the word tapasya, of slugging it off in the coaching center to get into a IIT through the JEE is so very different from the tapasya that one needs to do while at IIT in order to be able to actually expand one's jnana, so that Lakshmi, that is money, comes automatically on the side without much botheration. Because if you are really an innovative contributor, you don't need to worry. And therefore, in that sense, what you're saying is, from a kind of infer, identifying ripe areas of innovation where these kinds of multidisciplinary projects combine the best of the ancient wisdom and the science and technological contributions, along with the modern approaches of learning science and technology, the way we do it in our contemporary educational system. These can be sorted out if we get the motivation of the student right from the start. And what you're seeing is, IIT should not be the place where there's such a big mad rush. That kind of a setup should be available for all the students, so that they don't need to appear for JEE at all. And yet they are able to add value and bring it out in a very big way. That's a very important.
In fact, just to add there, Mohanji, is, for example, there is no Nobel Prize in engineering. There are Nobel Prizes in science, right? But how many of these students are doing science at the end of +2? In up to +2, you do only science. You study physics, maths, chemistry. But how many of them are joining ISETs, for example? Okay. You see, there are institutions equivalent to IITs have been established for only studying science. Okay. And this is just because we started at some point of time, as Rajiv ji started telling, that we started running behind money. Okay. And this run behind money would not lead you somewhere. I mean, it will never bring you Nobel Prizes to India if you start minding, brainwashing yourself that what is important is only money, nothing else.
So that's the point. The point is never to have an incentive like money or Nobel Prize, but just that you need to be a really successful, contributing, impactfully contributing professional. I think this impactfully contributing professional, which is what our ancient rishis were, the Vaijnanic rishis, if I can say so, that is missing in the contemporary education setup. That's what you're bringing out. That's a very important, interesting note. Maybe let me kind of go to Professor Manivannan and ask him, sir, in a very quick way, could you share your thoughts on how does one go about identifying projects which the students can complete and yet which combines both the wisdom of the ancient sciences and the approaches of modern educational uh, artifacts?
Sure.
Professor Manivannan.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Mohan. So, whether we like it or not, the students are running behind the money, and they will continue to run behind the money for next generation or so. That is the current situation. That is the truth. We have to accept it. If you want to encourage all our ancient science and all those things, we need to take a practical approach. Ideally, we want the students to grow looking at the inner ways, but that is the ideal way. That is going to be take very, very long time. So the practical approach is, how do we encourage the students take our ancient science approach at the same time where they can make money? So maybe what we can look at it, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples where the billion-dollar problems are addressed using our ancient scientific method. For example, diabetic diagnosis is one of the billion-dollar problem. Getting a non-invasive method. Okay, so our students are solving it using our ancient knowledge. Or another example I can briefly give you about this Linga Mudra, what we did for the COVID patients, without going to the hospital or for first aid, to improve the oxygen saturation, we come up with this idea of a simple Linga Mudra, which saved thousands of patients now. I'm glad to say that it has saved thousands of patients. And still, coming up with a very simple attachment to help patients to do Linga Mudra, there is a way of making money out of this. So I think my suggestions would be to encourage the students to look into the social problems which are now unsolved and which has $1 billion worth of it, but at the same time learn from the ancient science to address those issues. That would be my suggestion.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I really appreciate what you're really doing. That is, you're combining what is called as a pragmatic, impactful application, combining what has been done by our ancients with what is contemporary approach, so that people get motivated because of the outcomes that are demonstrable. And I think that's exactly what students need to do. I really appreciate your point there, Professor Manivannan. Let me go ask Professor Sampath Kumar, sir. In a minute, what do you say? How do you motivate your student to take up a project which you think can be done within 6 months' time?
Thank you, Professor Mohan. And first of all, I really convey my thanks, Professor Murthy. He conveyed what we are really facing with the students. People who joined with the JE background exactly conveyed to us. Actually, only small exception I can able to get through that. Rather than going for a top student, I always take the middle students, actually, middle level students.
Okay.
They are motivated, they really get interested, actually. That's the only way I'm able to know they are really coming for a do a good project and they able to do that. Now, coming out of this particular to motivate student, like to go out of picture type of situations. Particularly, the Vishwakarma award itself again considers one more award of the institute, actually. But it's a unique award. But people are really talking about award given for the student doing something for the society. So the award should really get a different function. Should be organized by a mud or a traditional society actually there. With some certificate done it publicly, then they really get motivated, get involved and do it. When they see that there is a real recognition coming from the society in a separate function, they get really motivated. Separate, we should do it actually. And there also increase more awards also. Only one award, the whole institute. Each award and the department should be there. Many awards. And having a separate function, if the social people are coming and encouraging them, then subsequently messages passed on to others also. They really get motivated, get into that. And during the meeting also, we can propose what are the common people like to solve it actually? These are the issues like to solve. Then they also get motivated. They themselves come later. Sir, I like to work on it. Can you get involved? Like that, we can slowly in turn bring them, motivated them. They themselves come to me or come to us to solve the problem using awareness, joint it together actually. That way we do it.
I really appreciate what you brought out. Let me just summarize it in under a minute. So what you're saying is that you need to have perhaps a heritage club within an institutional setup like an IIT, which can really work together with the institution in helping a project be framed such that the student can add value. And once that's done, then go beyond the institution's charge to be able to honor the student within the society, because the society stands to benefit in a big way, and the student gets to experience the satisfaction of seeing the acknowledgement by the society. And that's something which has got to be worked out, and that's something, it's a very interesting idea, very interesting idea. I think that's a very important takeaway, how to combine, how to work beyond the institutional barriers to be able to encourage students such that they really find the satisfaction of satisfying of seeing the impact of their awards. Professor Lakshman, what do you say to that? It's a good idea?
Yeah, I find that's a very good starting point to move forward. Now, as Rajiv ji already pointed out, yes, it is a big rat race around, and everybody runs for money. There is no doubt about it. It's going to be always money-driven economy hereafter until each person individual changes. It might be philosophical, but there are changes happening that I can say at least now. Especially when you talk about Gurukula, we've moved far away from Gurukulam, so we cannot twin it back immediately. But there are some schools even in Chennai which follows this Gurukula movement now. So slowly it will pick up and give you that importance towards don't go look for passion, not for money. And I have motivating students with respect to taking heritage projects. I have two particular points. It needs to come with both from the faculty learning as well as for the students. Why I say many of our faculties, for example, you take me, I have specialized in electrochemistry and corrosion. If you ask me about history, I blink. We lose what we learned in the historical things, for example. And that is where faculties have to keep in touch with that, take that to the students. To say that, of course, in IIT system, as Professor pointed out, there are new courses which introduced. So one thing which should be the heritage of India, especially in metallurgy department should have the architectural or archaeological based metallurgical subjects to enthuse them to say where do we, and give them the practical classes required for that. In of late, if you see IITs are more theory based. In general, most colleges are theory based. Hands-on experience are still far behind, right? And of course, we go for visits, we go for industrial visits, not for archaeological visits from IITs. So you take them to them, they have the capacity to do it. Yes, they will obviously look for the dollars. But you enthuse them showing what is that different in Chidambaram temple? What is that important in Tanjavur temple? It's basically institutes do not do that, as of I understand right now. So that's where we introduce them, these aspects to it, and say, yes, the project for this, which Mr. Akshay won, was based on the societal need, which came from a rural action tag group, rural technological action group, which came through Professor Manas to us to solve this problem of Bidar. In fact, that is how we initiated the problem, gave him. Of course, he would ask me the immediate question, sir, will I get a job? I say, yes, this is a satisfaction point. It's not money. And I'm proud to say that at least the student who is right now, he has his own entrepreneurship, which he chooses towards Ayurveda, or you name it, either way, he is towards the earth. He is having his own company, which builds toothbrushes made of natural bamboo and charcoal. So that is the old antique thing, and he is using business for it. The tissue is based on bamboo. He has his own company floated in Mumbai with his friends, and they are doing, that's what is my belief, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm very positive that it will take time, but surely it is possible. That's my view of it.
Wonderful, Rajiv ji. So Rajiv ji, coming to you on this very important topic of, you kind of said Silicon Valley is so very materialistic and money oriented, but then like Professor B.S. Murthy was saying, getting the students to be motivated to go beyond the money part and to do something which is absolutely impactful professional contribution, and that opens a huge vista of dimensions in which students can spot opportunities and possibly entrepreneurial impact, entrepreneurial efforts being successful. So what do you say to these kinds of use that has been expressed, Rajiv ji?
So I think all this is wonderful. I would add one more dimension. I think there is bottom up and there's top down.
Okay.
So some of these ideas are bottom up. So you spontaneously, you look for something that inspires you and then you work on it, or your particular professor has an area of interest and he has a few students and he nurtures them. These are kind of decentralized bottom up, and they're very, very important. But let's also learn from China. China made at the nation level 10 big bets. And they said we are going to roll the dice on billions of dollars on every one of them, with the goal that in 10 to 15 years, we should be number one or number two in the world in each of them. And they picked, solar energy, they put electric vehicles with lithium ion, artificial intelligence and robotics and quantum computing. And, you know the list of the major bets that China made as a nation. And they sent out a lot of funding, a lot of, so the idea was that if there is a certain overall architecture of a problem and you want to become number one in solving that on a global scale, with that as your vision, a lot of little things can be done that fit into that. So a whole lot of people can work on, a particular issue, which one of these big bets that the government has made. There's tons of money available for that. So now you are encouraging a decentralized, spontaneous interest on the part of a lot of people. But if it is one of those 10 areas or whatever number of areas India chooses, then of course it will also be for nation building, and they'll be able to find other people in India collaborating because they've also picked a similar topic. So I think that defining these very big areas would be important. The second thing I would like to mention. The second thing I would like to mention.
Let me just add one small point to what you said, Rajivji. So India as a nation, India as a civilization has to make large bets. And in that context, you need to have the human resources, the scientists, the engineers who are excellent professionals really come out with something which is impactful. And it is in that impactful contribution context that we can leverage our continuity of being able to do something which has been happening for the past 1,000 years. So can I frame it that way, Rajivji?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And you see, these large bets are not short-term money making, and so no industrialist is going to make that. I mean, if the Chinese government had not identified that we keep supporting you billions of dollars, we'll know that you'll make losses for a while, but in the end, we'll bring world-class companies and world-class entrepreneurs, and they did. In all these areas of bet, almost every one of them, China is either number one or number two. So India needs to define the very big bets of that kind. ISRO could not have started, or Bhabha Atomic Research could not have started as with some kind of a private industry wanting to do it on their own, because they would like to see a business plan which makes money in a few years. These are not always money making short term, but in the long run, they will make industries, large industries, lot of jobs.
With the public starting the big bets and the private industry really building up the ecosystem to ensure that the benefits of the big bets are really made. And I think it is in that context that we need to frame this problem of how to encourage our students to take up projects that blends the best of what is called as the knowledge that has been contributed to by our ancients, that ability to contribute, the empirical thinking, the algorithmic thinking, the ability to make things happen fast, versus applying the contemporary knowledge into the society. And therefore, when you do contemporary society, you do it for the world at large. So Rajivji, if I may kind of say,
the second part of my thought is that both United States and China have built a government, industry, academic complex, where the three work together. When I was in 1970, graduate student, I was very impressed that my professor had a Pentagon grant, and he got me the security clearance, so I could also go with him. It was very inspiring. I'm this young fellow, and a few other young students like me and this professor, we're solving some very big national problem that the government is funding. And so we are this business that the government funds academics in a very big way. Industry funds academics. A large number of the amount of research, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's computer science, metallurgy, aerospace, you will find that these academic people get huge grants from the big industry. So the industry with its money is also nurturing students because they'll be employees in the future. And they want to, it is part of their CSR, if you will, to fund academic research. And so, you know, we need to bring industry into research. We need to bring government into academics, and we need to bring government and industry together. This triangle is not happening in India in a large scale. It's very few examples here and there. You can give me isolated example that this professor and that industry working together, but that's a rare situation. It needs to be more normal for industry, government, and academics to be working together on huge problems, very, very big problems. And then the young students will be very inspired to stay in India. First thing you got to be, a challenge you have to win is Indian brilliant brains should stay in India. And when they stay in India, they should not be working for Microsoft India and Google India. They should be working for something that stays in India as Indian intellectual property. Just because you're based in Bangalore and you're somewhere and you're working for an American company doesn't mean that you're serving the Indian nation, because all that intellectual property belongs somewhere in the US. So this mindset has to change. And this is going to be required big thinking. This is what Niti Aayog, HRD ministry, all those guys better be doing. I don't see them doing all this.
Wonderful. I think you are really hit the nail in a very interesting way. You need to have this triangle of industry, government, and academia working together with a very strong Indic sense of identity and the Indic duty towards the Indic civilizational ethos. And that is exactly how I think we need to really build up. And I'm sure, Professor B.S. Murthy, you would like to have the last word, sir, because we're coming to the end of this panel of about 2 hours. I think the time is just flying by, right?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Didn't even realize that we are almost at the end. So, Professor B.S. Murthy, what do you say to what Professor
I echo what Professor Rajiv has taught. Okay, the top-down is much more important because top-down can be on a large scale. The bottom-up will be on a small scale. Okay, if you want a complete societal, overhauling that has to happen, it cannot happen in small pockets. So I hope MOE will seriously think about this and then bring in. But there are changes happening. I do not say it is completely not happening, but they are happening, as Lakshman pointed out at some point of time. They are happening at such a slow pace that it is going to take much. I think people have to understand that time is very important. Time is very precious. So as a result, it is important to bring in these changes in a big way. The way China is doing, so committed, they are doing it. But India also should be committed to bring these changes very quickly.
Wonderful. I think on that note, if I kind of say so, what Rajiv ji and what Professor B.S. Murthy said, India, Indian people, Indian governance structures like government, in the academia, in the industry, really have to wake up to this reality. A, you cannot be slow and tectonically slow or glacially slow in trying to bring about the change. You need to really wake up to the scorching pace at which things are happening across the world. We in India have to learn to adapt to that space. Two, we really need to build upon our strengths, and our strengths have been that we have a continuity issue in terms of saying, look, past thousands of years, we have been adding value at the level of science and technology where humanity at large has benefited, and we need to bring that spirit back. And therefore, in that context, we have to motivate the students to not only do solid work here, but also know that when they do impactful work, money automatically comes. So on that note, I would like to thank you, Professor B.S. Murthy. Thank you, Professor Lakshman. Thank you, Professor Manivannan. Thank you, Professor Sampath Kumar. And Rajiv ji, thanks a lot for having come together on this panel. And on this note, we close this panel discussion.